This episode was amazing. The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 10 really jumbles up a lot of the characters, and they come out the right way. Before going into this episode, I was very, very worried that it would be like Episode 6, one of the worst episodes in the entire series. The Kingdom, the Widow, and Rick. The King, the Widow, and the Rick. One of the worst episodes ever made. This episode surprised the heck out of me. From a directing standpoint to a writing standpoint. This episode went for it. And I wish every Sunday would be like this. This reminded me of the old days of The Walking Dead. When it wasn't cartoony. When we had to take the characters seriously. The characters in this episode are so real and so rich in detail and writing that I was just so gripped to my seat the entire hour. From the beginning to the end, I loved tonight. This was a heck of a great episode. I don't know who directed it, but they did a swell job. Even the Oceanside. I am not a personal fan of the Oceanside, but even the Oceanside storyline was tolerable in this episode. Aaron talking to Enid was very heartfelt. I enjoyed almost every single scene in this episode. It was so fantastic. I loved Negan in this episode. He wasn't all cartoony like he normally is, where he's loudmouthed. He actually felt like a real human being trying to make real decisions, struggling to balance himself. Simon is a freaking psychopath, killing all of the Junkyard group. I mean, his portrayal was amazing. But let's talk about the writing again. I love how they split up all of the characters in this episode. Every character gets focused on one point or another, and I loved that. I thought just the writing was so gripping. Whoever directed this, you felt like you were there. Like it was a film. This is what I miss in The Walking Dead. This is what The Walking Dead needs to be every single Sunday. It was that good. The aftermath of Alexandria, you actually felt sorry for Rick and Michonne. I thought last week the episode was very poor. I did not like episode 9. This episode, you actually felt sorry for the characters. When the characters had conversations in this episode, you actually gave a crap because it felt real, like real people communicating with one another. And that's really what you don't get anymore in The Walking Dead. And that's kind of what I miss nowadays in The Walking Dead. This episode was, oh my god, it was so good. I loved even the action. The part with Jadis, her whole family is killed by Simon, and they all reanimate, and she has to attract them to this grinder, and the grinder kills all of them. Her family is just grinded up in literal seconds. And that's it. They're all meat. They're all like hamburger meat. It's disgusting and super, super sad. This was a very well-directed scene where she looks down at her family being grinded up in the blink of an eye. I adored this scene. Also, Rick and Michonne talking near the beginning of the episode felt like real people, like they were making real choices. Michonne, the look on her face she was deeply, deeply depressed because of what happened to Carl. It was crazy. Let's talk about Negan as well. Negan, you actually kind of like the guy in this episode. Before this episode, I'm like, oh god, it's Negan. In the beginning, I was like, oh god, it's Negan. But very fast, I was like, he's tolerable in this episode. He's actually pretty decent. And I actually cared about what Negan had to say in this episode. He's not just this loudmouthed, cartoony character that bends his back all the time like we saw in Season 7. He's actually having a character now in The Walking Dead, and I love that. I couldn't be more impressed. I thought Jeffrey D. Morgan did it. Sorry, Del. I thought Jeffrey D. Morgan did a great job playing Negan. Simon, the psychopath, when it shows his face, and there was no music. So one of the big flaws I have in The Walking Dead nowadays is there's so much music because they're trying to build a dramatic moment because the directing is so poor. But there was no music in this scene when Simon was talking to Jadis because it was so dramatic without the music. It was just silence. And then when he shot her group like that was intense as heck. It was bone chilling. I just have to say that. This episode was also really action packed. We had a lot of zombie moments. You know, we had the walkers in the junkyard where Rick and Michonne had to fight the walkers. And you actually care about Jadis a little bit. Her old self is coming out. You get to know where she's from, why she chose the junkyard group. So now she's not some cartoonish buffoon living in a junkyard. She might have been poor in her old life. She might have, and she enjoyed art. You know, she enjoyed painting. So she enjoyed going to this junkyard to find canvases. And now in the apocalypse, she saw it as something beautiful, that they could restart a civilization in here. I thought that was really, really beautiful. Well done. And I thought Jadis was actually tolerable in this episode too. I really do like Jadis. I do. A lot of people have a hatred for Jadis, kind of a similar hatred to Jadis like they have a hatred for Madison. But I like Madison and I like Jadis, so I'm not on board with those people. I think Jadis is one of the unique characters. Sometimes she goes a little bit overboard with her talking, but not in this episode. She was gripping. Her character was gripping, and I was so sad. I nearly cried. I mean, it was intense. It's crazy. It's really crazy that episode 10 is a million times more emotional than episode 9. It really is. This episode, I want to say, is great. The writing is great. The music is great. The directing is great. You take people seriously. I love how they have the names like Michonne, Rick, Jadis, Negan, Simon. Like, it tells a story for all of them in this episode. And you really care about these characters. I enjoyed the realistic tone. It felt very mature and grounded, and I got chill bumps a lot in this episode. I thought this episode was one of the best we have seen in a very long time. I give this episode an A+. It was great. Excuse me. It was fantastic. One thing I do have to criticize, it's not really anything big about the writing or anything, but the censoring of the gore. They did show the walkers getting grinded inside the thing. That was really gory. But the thing that really makes me mad is when they shoot the walkers. Nowadays, there's no blood because they censored it. A long time ago in like season 1 through 6, there was blood splatter everywhere. They got rid of that, and the blood splatter is what made The Walking Dead unique, so they need to bring that back soon. But other than that, this episode was amazing. A+ for me. I'm actually excited to see where the rest of season 8 goes. I was not expecting this episode to be as good as it was. I was like, oh god, this is going to be episode 6 all over again. A jumbled mess where we have too many characters, too many storylines going on, but I was completely wrong. This episode was fantastic. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video, everyone. Leave a like, comment down below, subscribe, do whatever the heck you want to do, and goodbye. Bye, everyone.